Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Alana, so tell me what you're doing with your rental properties.
Yeah, so I've been investing for about 4 years, all while having a full-time job for the last 6 years with a nonprofit. That's really, really time consuming. But I have a real passion for owning my time. And so I have been investing for the last 4 years with the light at the end of the tunnel to be able to do real estate full-time eventually.
On the podcast today, Alana is going to share with us how she finds the time to find deals and manage her properties, all while working that busy full-time job. We'll also take a look at one of her deals and talk about her plans to eventually leave her job and support herself off of her rentals. Joining us on the podcast today from Faribault, Minnesota is Alana Kern. We'll take a quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Alana. Are you thinking about investing in rental properties, but maybe you don't know where to start? My friends at MidSouth HomeBuyers make it simple. For over 23 years, they've been selling fully renovated turnkey rental properties in Memphis and Little Rock. We're talking new roofs, plumbing, electric, kitchens, bathrooms. Everything is brand new and done right. And here's the best part. Every property comes with a well-qualified tenant in place before you close. That means you get cash flow from day one. Plus, MidSouth continues to professionally manage the property for you after the sale, and they back it up with 2 powerful guarantees. You get a 1-year total maintenance warranty and a lifetime occupancy guarantee. Personally, I've bought 5 properties from them and I couldn't be happier. If you want to talk to someone that's been through the process, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you're ready to get started, just go to MidSouthHomebuyers.com. That's MidSouthHomebuyers.com. It's a lot of work to find a really good rental property, and when you actually find that property, you want to make sure you're working with a lender that can get that loan closed. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of loan programs, and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Alana, let's start off talking about your portfolio. What does your portfolio look like?
Sure. So 2 weeks ago, I just did my 10th deal. But what I actually have right now is I have 1 duplex, 1 single family home, and 2 triplexes. And one of those triplexes is a mixed use space.
Now, you mentioned that you were busy with your job and you have a lot of stuff going on. How much time would you say that you spend on your rentals, like say in a typical month?
Sure. In a typical month, it's slowed down a little bit now because I finally got all the renovations done with the one I had been working on for quite a while. I would say in a month, maybe like 10 hours.
Okay. And that a lot of that is just with the renovations. Like that's not all dealing with tenants or different issues that might come up. That's because you're renovating properties?
Correct. Renovating properties. And then it's maybe 10 is a lot right now, or more than usual, because like I just bought another property and like finding tenants and screening tenants and all that stuff takes time as well. Yeah.
Now, what are the neighborhoods like that your properties are in?
Sure. So they are all, I'm in small town, Minnesota. And I own in 3 different towns, all within an hour of each other. And they're all, I would say they're mostly all good neighborhoods. That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up because the newest one I just bought, it's hard because I don't really know that town super well. And so that was one like hesitancy I had going in was, is this a good neighborhood? Because I'm not from that town, so I don't really know super well. But I kind of judged it on the current tenants that were there and like, they're super awesome. So
what attracted you to that town?
I actually had said that I would never buy in that town because it doesn't have like the best reputation, but there's there's good parts and bad parts in every town. So it was kind of funny because I actually found that one on the MLS, and I am just a sucker for a fully rented triplex or any type of multifamily is really, my buy box. And so I'm like, well, I'll just go look at it. And when I looked at it, it was the cleanest like rental or house I'd ever looked at. So
Wow.
I could tell they really maintained it well. So that was worth it to me.
Yeah. And you're self-managing everything, right?
Correct.
Now, let's talk about how you advertise. So when a property turns over, how are you advertising to find tenants?
I mostly use apartments.com or word of mouth. So I'm a big believer in word of mouth because like it usually comes from like a friend that knows somebody. And so like a referral is always really great because it gives me a lot of peace of mind. But otherwise I use, apartments.com. I have used Facebook Marketplace, which has been actually really successful as well. And my, Instagram, but I would say primarily these days it's been on apartments.com.
When someone sees your listing, do you do any kind of pre-screening to make sure they're going to qualify? Or do you just run out there and show it to them?
Well, now I do. I have had, going into real estate 4 years ago and just kind of jumping in like without any like really mentorship or anything like that. I was pretty naive. And I've been taken advantage of a couple times because I'm a pretty chill landlord. I try to be really flexible. I understand things happen. Rent might have to be a little late. As long as they communicate with me, I'm typically okay with that because I have multifamilies. Like the other units will cover the expenses anyways. But I have been taken advantage of a couple times. For example, I had a tenant that I should have known better. But when he came to me, I think he saw the listing on Facebook and he called me and left me like a super endearing voicemail. This was a furnished unit. I have some that I keep furnished. And he's like, I don't have anything of my own. I really want to get out of my parents' house. He was like 21. He had a decent job, all that stuff. And so I didn't really screen him besides meeting him and going off vibes. Really like him as a person. So the vibes there were correct. But as a tenant, like I finally evicted him. Well, actually, first I put him down to month after the lease expired. He like begged me to stay when I was hesitant, put him down to month because then it protected me and it protected him if he wanted to get out of it. And a couple more times I had to like warn him like, hey, I really just don't think this is working out. And I'm a very empathetic person. And so I was always like, he was definitely like manipulating me a lot. To feel bad for his situation. So finally, back in July, I finally, I don't know if the word would be evicted because it was month to month, but I said, I'm not continuing our lease. And he left me with a broken window, infested with fleas, didn't pay like the last rent. He left me out like over $3,000.
Wow.
And so to your original question, sorry for that rant, but to your original question, so now I have systems I don't deviate from. I've just really learned that this is a business and like I can still be compassionate and still be business minded. And so, for example, the triplex I just bought in that town that I'm buying in for the first time, I declined 2 tenants through their screening prior to finding the tenant that just signed a lease.
Wait, so let's go back real quick to the guy that didn't work out, that did all the damage. Like looking back on it, is there anything that you should have noticed in his background that would have let you know that this guy's probably not going to work out?
I think that I don't think there was like actually anything on like a background check I would have found, but I should have looked at like a credit score. Granted, being 21, you're not going to have like a great credit score, even if you're, just building it. But like, I just should have not been so flexible or lenient. I shouldn't have been so lenient. I should have like been more picky about having someone that's like rented before. So they knew what they were like getting into and all that. So yeah, I definitely would do that differently if I could go back.
Do you think he did that damage because he was mad, or was that just something that happened?
I don't think he did it because he was mad, like, that I was telling him to leave. One of the reasons he was not a great tenant is it's in a duplex, and the other unit has like a mom, and like she has like a 6-year-old daughter. And one time she like texted me and she's like, "I'm so sorry, but I called the police because I think there's a domestic going on the other side." And I ended up like talking to that tenant about it, and he said that it wasn't a domestic. He was like, his girlfriend had left and he was like freaking out himself and like threw a chair and stuff. So that's actually like around the time I said we should go down to month, but I didn't realize he broke a window because he hid that pretty well.
So talk to me about your screening criteria today. Like what are you looking for in a good tenant?
I am requiring, no exceptions, a background check for sure. I think that can tell you like a lot about a person. And actually one of the tenants that applied for this new one I have, like he like had like 13 times in jail in the last few years. And one of those was like destruction to property. There was some language that sounded like, I talked to my lawyer. He sounded like it was probably squatting the way it was worded, fleeing from police, like all this stuff. And when you're buying multifamily units, you have to be like really extra careful because there's other families like living on that same property.
Right.
And so a background check, super, super helpful. A credit score check, which depending on their situation, I might be a little bit, flexible on. So I think those are the main two things. And just like references. So I won't call their like current landlord in case they like don't like the tenant. So they just lie to me and be like, "Oh yeah, they're great. You should definitely rent to them." So I always call one that they haven't been at, or the one that they're not currently at. And a good reference is like, everything to me. Actually, the one that just signed a lease, he came to look at it and the current tenants were about like on their, like they were moving out and he was coming to look at it. They knew each other. They had worked together like in a different city and they're like, "Oh my gosh." And so then like the old tenants, like that was a good referral because they told me they're like, he is just like a really, really good guy, like really big on personal responsibility, has a great job. And so that was like a good, referral for me to feel comfortable letting him sign the lease.
Now you've definitely had some troubled tenants, but would you say overall most of your tenants are pretty good?
Yes, absolutely. I've, sometimes you hear like people are scared to be a landlord, which is understandable. But in my experience, the like 2 bad experiences I've had are like the positives definitely outweigh the negatives in real estate. Yeah. Like it's more risky to like not invest, I think, than to like be scared of like what could go wrong, because you can always fix what's wrong.
Totally. So let's go back to the beginning. So how did you get started? What was your first deal?
Yeah. So my first deal was a house hack. So I bought a duplex and I lived in half of it and I decided to Airbnb out the other part of it. A lot of the reason for that is that I also like, I only had a few of these women, but I also marketed word of mouth to like domestic abuse survivors that like weren't leaving their bad situation because they didn't have like their own couch, their own dishes, like their own everything. Mm-hmm. And so I furnished the unit to be able to help women like that. But then like when I didn't have a domestic abuse survivor, then like it also worked for Airbnb. So yeah, it was awesome. I don't think I've never paid a mortgage on that house on my own.
That's awesome. Are you still living there today?
I am not. I actually only lived there for 6 months, which was kind of sad. I've learned not to get emotional about properties though, and just do what makes sense because I absolutely loved that house. It was beautiful. But no, a house came up for sale right around the corner from that one. And so looked at that, put an offer in on that because I was able to like save so much money in that 6 months, not paying my own mortgage or utilities, that I bought that. And then I rented out the place that the half I had been living at 6 months later.
And so that must be cash flowing great today.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's just an amazing deal.
The property that you moved to, are you still house hacking that property?
No, actually ended up, because I've also done like flips and stuff like that. So I've moved into other places since then. And that house is actually sold
Okay.
to another family now. Yeah.
So is doing flips, is that how you raised a lot of the down payment money to buy properties?
So I've done two flips, but one was just a camper, but I bought it for 5,000 and flipped it in 3 days and was able to sell it for 10.5. And so I was able to use that $5,500 profit on part of a down payment for another house. And then I sold that one. So the house that bought, then I sold that house and for a huge profit. And so I put that into a house I wanted to flip. And then the profit from that flip funded probably my best deal yet. I profited, I split it with someone else. We each profited about 38,000. And so then I took my 38,000 and put it as a down payment on what's probably my best deal today.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What was your best deal?
So I bought, and this was in August. It was August 26th of 2024. So just a little over a year ago. I really think this was my best deal for a few reasons. I found it off market, and it wasn't like a wholesaler called me or anything like that, which is also an amazing way to find deals. But I actually was just kind of doing my research, and I really wanted a triplex, and I kind of wanted to dabble in commercial a little bit. And so I actually just went and knocked on the door and talked to because I had heard a rumor that he might be selling his practice. So I had no idea if he was going to, I didn't even know if he owned the building, honestly. But I went and knocked on the door and asked for like a tour, said I'm an investor and I'm interested. And he had wanted to put it on the MLS for like 425. But that day, I offered him 300. And I wasn't even trying to like haggle down so much. There was so much work to put into it that 425 just wouldn't have made sense. So I offered 300 and I was flexible on a closing date because they were like in their 80s and they had so much stuff they lived there and they worked there for 42 years. And I said, you know what, you just let me know when you're ready to close. So yeah, I bought it for 300. They accepted the offer that same day, closed about 5 months later. And that one, my total income is 68,400 from that space, which leaves me with a profit of 31,460 a year on that one.
He was asking 425 and he took 300 the same day. Like that's a huge concession to give. Why do you think he took such a low price?
Well, I asked for a tour, and like as he was giving me the tour, it was like an hour tour of like he told me like his whole story of his chiropractic business, and like we went through every single room in detail and stuff, and I could tell he was really loving talking about it. So we had really good rapport, which I think is important. Mm-hmm. And then I think he was realizing as he walked through it himself, like how much work there was to do, because he mentioned that to me a couple times. Like, I know this is a lot. It was just very outdated. It was mostly cosmetic, but it was like super, super outdated. And so I said, like, I don't know if I can make that work, but I could probably, he said, what can you make work? And I said, probably like 300. And within like 2 hours, he called and said, let's do it.
Wow.
So that was amazing.
How did you get the 300 number?
Okay, so I have a side gig where I have a friend who's a wholesaler and he lives like an hour away. So when he has properties here, he asks me to go like evaluate them. And so I've evaluated like 50 properties where I've really gotten a good eye for like how much the work is going to cost, like, you know, what I can afford. My flip house had just paid me like 38,000. So I knew I could do like a down payment of like that. Mm-hmm. And so 300 just worked for me. But I also truly think that was about what it was worth in that current state. I don't think he would have gotten what he wanted on the MLS either.
Well, good for you.
And it made it a lot smoother and a lot cheaper transaction for both of us.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some numbers on that. So you bought it for 300. How much work did it need? Like how much did you spend on rehabbing the property?
Yeah, about 20,000.
Okay.
Give or take. Yeah. Because the downstairs apartment in that place needed a ton of work. The upstairs apartment needed like none. And then the office space was the biggest project. So yeah, I figured my numbers before and it's like between 20 and 25,000.
Okay. All right. So you're all in at 320. And then how much was your down payment?
We ended up doing 35,000.
35,000. Okay. All right. And then how much is your mortgage payment?
2,075.
And then what's the total rent for the whole building?
So 5,700 is what I cash flow a month.
All right. So 5,700, you pay the mortgage. So you've got about 3,200 left over after the mortgage. How do you budget for repairs and vacancies and just whatever might come up on the property?
Yeah, that is probably my weakest point, honestly. And I think part of the reason for that is like when I have the money, I want to buy another property.
Yeah.
So like I just really wanted to grow aggressively because some people might laugh at this, some people might agree with me, but I started when I was 28, almost 29. And so I felt like I was late to the party. And so I'm like, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to be a full-time investor, I told myself from the beginning, I'm getting in this for like the long haul. I want to grow as aggressively as I can while still remaining smart. But I would say that like now that I have 4 structures total and it's 15 doors, I feel like the smart thing to do is to hold off on that next property for a little bit while I get, a good savings. What that number is yet, I don't know exactly. But that's kind of my next goal is to chill out on the properties and make sure I have a good savings.
It's really hard. I mean, it's so important to have reserves, but it's so hard. I'm with you. Whenever I save enough money, I want to buy another property too. I mean, that's really the hardest thing to balance. So like, what do you think it's going to take? I mean, you said you want to go full time and be an investor full time. What do you think it's going to take? How many properties do you think you're going to need?
Sure. Well, if I keep buying multifamily, which is like where I believe the money's at, my cash on cash return is just great with the multifamilies. I figured I was doing some refreshed math this week, and my profit should be $48,700 a year just from real estate.
Awesome.
But that doesn't, that accounts for all the utilities and like all the property taxes and insurance. That accounts for all of that, but it doesn't account for like the fact that like 2 days ago, I live in Minnesota, a heater in my building like blew up. They described it, and it's going to be $1,700 to replace. So like that stuff, obviously like 48,000 like isn't enough to like be comfortable like leaving my full-time salary job. So I think if I can cash flow like 10,000 pure cash flow a month and have reserves, I think then I would be comfortable saying see ya to my job.
I think you're on the right path. If anybody wants to reach out to Alana, I've got her contact information on the website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 553. I'd like to thank Steadily Ridge from Ridge Lending Group for sponsoring today's episode. If you're looking to buy a rental property, whether you're just getting started or you want to add to your portfolio, reach out to Steadily. She's a nationwide lender. She has a ton of different loan programs, and she can find something that'll work for you. You can track her down at ridgelendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. Make sure you hit that follow button. I put out a new interview every single Tuesday, and if you're following the show, you'll get notified when the next one comes out. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.